3,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's still viable.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are things like lawsuits and litigation that prevent that from being a conversation.
Right, right.
But just applying logic to it, as we did with the Phoenix Center, it becomes obvious that the opportunities that represents are immense,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they still are. The owners probably have a different view of that, in that they've been faced with obstacles almost from their purchase.
Right.
They've been damaged. The father's aged. The son wants to ensure his father's last years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right,
So,
right.
so they're really focused on other things than, let's say, community development.
Okay. Okay.
And we're all about community development as the economic driving force
Right.
in the city of Pontiac.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that became apparent to me is we don't have any kids downtown.
Mm-hmm.
How do we change that? Because without that, we don't have a sustainable future.
Okay.
Because if the kids aren't participating in their downtown on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
not just a visit on a weekend or what have you, but something that is more systemic, that values them in their participation.
So what is your vision when you say kids downtown? What do you
Okay, so we had a design walk that goes to part of our design thinking thing with
Right.
Weber.
Mhm.
And one of the things we're doing is a Saginaw Green Park, which gets us to some kind of sustainability from the standpoint of the environment and from a design feature at Saginaw Green Park, along with Golden Walsh, who is actually tasked with designing that park. And
Okay.
Tim Travis is a very good friend of ours,
Right.
long-term relationship. He happens to be one of those individuals who gets the way in which work is changing. And then it goes to, again, we talked about this flyer and we talked about work and play and the change on work and play. You may have not seen that. And STEM and all of those things. Well, that facility as the Phoenix Center and its history as a Pontiac plan goes right to STEM. I mean, it's probably the best STEM plaza learning center available to us in the state of Michigan, maybe even nationally. Certainly much larger than Campus Martius. So those are the kinds of things that, as I'm saying, that are available to us in downtown to utilize as ways in which to engage young people in their own future.
Well, we explored that facility when we had an emergency with one of our schools. And unfortunately, it did not pan out due to the structure of the building.
Yeah, 8 floors.
Yes, and so, I really don't know where else we could, explore that option with the fact that, it's at, I don't know how many stories is it, 8 stories over there, and so they did not grant us permission or even suggest that was feasible in the future for students to be housed there. So we kind of gave up on it, but I understand what you're saying because they have the wiring,
Right.
they have all of that.
Telecommunications is probably going to be the best kept secret in education.
Right.
And to say that, Oakland County's #1 in the state in terms of its IT deployment. The state's #1 in the United States. Education's 34th. Deployment. So you can see the problem there. And 13 gigabytes, one says, well, what's 13 gigabytes do for us? If you notice all the noise that's going on in Detroit and other municipalities around the country, it's all about broadband. And broadband are turning cities around. 5 years ago, there were several municipalities who went out and allowed, during the FCC's layback, to purchase and develop their own municipality broadband capacities. Okay? And today, they're starting to see companies, corporations locating there. And I'll give you an example, the Pyramid Building up in Grand Rapids. And that's a $5 billion investment by an outside third-party company who wants to come in, and we've had a long relationship with the Pyramid Building. We work with one of our clients up there in Zealand as a charter school. And they were the governor was making some kind of effort to secure the Pyramid Building as a STEM center.
Okay.
And we were very excited about that. 680,000 square feet. It's the old R&D for Steelcase.
Okay.
And so we're still plugged into that conversation, and what they're going to the legislator right now is to get some ask for tax incentives, abatements, and so forth and so on, because they're going to put $5 billion worth of economic development in there.
Right.
And the most recent was a couple of days ago. They published that they were going to allow that to take place.
Oh, really?
And not only were they going to allow that to take place there, they were going to allow it across the state for anybody that would be in that business. Which goes to one of the choices that the owners have at Ottawa Towers, which is to put a call center in there. What a waste, personally, what a waste of an opportunity when we have these other opportunities, such as the city of Pontiac needs that deployment of that fiber capacity through the downtown. The infrastructure that's already there makes that a compelling environment for all kinds of third parties to come in, which is at the the base of what we're attempting to do. We've had conversations with Oakland University, we've had conversations with LTU, we've had conversations with numerous other institutions and human service organizations, but the Phoenix Center in and of itself should be the community magnet, as it was when it was first envisioned, and as it was as it participated and unfolded, was for the first 5 years of its existence, till somebody said, no, it's just an event venue. It was only the amphitheater was actually an aside to the Phoenix Center. It wasn't the compelling item, it was just an aside to the plaza. So we need an economic development catalyst in downtown. And if we start thinking about things like M1 rail, transportation, we're the end of M1 rail, but you never hear anything about us.
Right.
When they're talking about M1 rail, they're talking about down to Detroit on Jefferson, right? And they're up to New Center. But as soon as that's deployed, which is end of 2016, 2017, we have Amtrak down to New Center to all the way to the river. And we should be seeing that as a way of drawing participants into a 21st century environment right up here, right? You have work, you have play, and you have downtown. You have the entertainment district in between. That's what people will be experiencing in the future, whether that's 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And forgetting about M1 rail getting all the way out here, we already could be experiencing the way in which that works. And enticing young people to stay here in the city of Pontiac because of it, because of the jobs and opportunities that represents. There's nowhere to go to learn about this. Work and play, work has changed. There's no place to go line up anymore. And play has certainly changed because you're going to be more playfully working, because you're going to be working 24/7, 365, as you well know. And so is everyone.
Right.
And so it better be something you enjoy, number one. It better be engaging. It better be passionate. And you better love it. And I think that's the kind of thing that design thinking allows young people to recognize, is that there's ways in which to shape their future that is pleasing, that is productive, and that gives them happiness.
So tell me a little bit about, because I know we can't really discuss, there's a lot of litigation going on with that building. What did you do with the Sarah Weber Media? Is that the name of the school?
Sarah Weber Media Center.
Yeah. Tell me what type of work you did with that school.
Well, we worked closely with the Art and Arvanita for, I think, I first met Art and Arvanita before they opened. Okay, and I heard what they were proposing, and I was a big advocate, because it was based on project-based learning and experiential learning, and I love that.
Right.
And we said, well, we have our process that we use that allows young people to become learners of thinking, how to think as opposed to what to think, and they were taken with that. So we said, well, let's see where this unfolds. You guys get your footing and so forth, and we stayed in touch, and probably a year later, we happened by again, and it appeared as though they had a moment to bring that into being. So the first thing was to do, it's much like I did with Mary Ann Donahue over at ITA. We had a design charrette with the kids. And it's a great thing about asking young people to participate in the visioning process, that covers all of the kinds of things such as, you know, you take 5 bold steps to achieve a project or a program or
Okay.
an identified goal, strategic or tactical, either one. You're talking about challenges and supports because you have to see the whole of it. You have to know, you know, what the possibilities are, and then more importantly, the engagement from their thinking rather than our thinking.
Right.
Asking them Socratically to participate in their own development. And of course comes the responsibility of learning that becomes self-assessed and so forth and so on. And I think that's the magic of it, really. You're asking them about themselves to find out what their directions, what their passions are, and optimizing that in a project-based learning structure that delivers value to them that's relevant. And I think the relevance is what really resonates with them.
Okay.
At Sarah Weber, and young people are really good at this because really what is it about? It's about free association. And I'm very good at that at 5 years old. And not so good at 25. And at 35, oh my God, I can't remember, and so forth and so on. So it also changes the way the instructional model becomes a facilitator model as opposed to a instructional model that we're more familiar with. That's a little difficult if someone's not prepared to take on that kind of more encompassing proposition as opposed to a more direct approach to learning. And we talk about testing and all of that and the constraints that puts on a classroom and a teacher's time and in fact everyone's time. So it's kind of a shift for kids. And when we went and exposed that to the young people at Sarah Weber, the kids were just off the charts. And here's what was interesting. Here's what we discovered, because there's a thought that young people in urban populations are less than, and the truth is they're not.
Right.
Right? You know that, I know that. But the kids absolutely nailed it. I do a process where I'm evaluating, you know, what kind of intelligence do we have in the room, how engaged are they, how enthused are they alive and well, and so forth and so on. These kids knocked it out of the park. I mean, I do this with adults.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you do like a training session with the teachers? Because you could come in and do it with students, but we really need to embed that.
Yeah, there's some professional staff development that I think precedes it. Okay.
Okay.
Because you really need the buy-in of the teachers.
Correct.
Right. I mean, there's no sense to it if it's just an exercise. It's just an exercise. If there isn't intellectual buy-in on behalf of the teachers, we did that with Weber. We had probably 4 or 5 hours of give and take with the teachers.
Kids First.
Kids First initiative, Richard Bell,
Yes, I'm familiar
et cetera,
with
we
them.
participated.
The teachers were very engaged when we did that program, and they said, we want these charts in every classroom.
What charts would that be? The ones?
Well,
The
the two
vision
that-
and game plan, they were posted at the Ottawa Towers open house. You recall? That's the process.
Okay. Okay.
If you go and look at or Google design thinking, you'll come to Stanford. And Stanford does a design thinking proposition, and they're sharing it across, you know, the corporate 100 threshold right now. And because corporate America has to get to this collaborative proposition to be efficient. And it's being well received all around the country. In fact, Harvard just picked it up as well. So we know that the two leading institutions are rolling this up. If you're going to go take this as a one-day immersive class, you're going to pay $750. If you're going to take it as a week-long with a group, you're going to pay $3,500. Kids need to be having this opportunity, okay? It's available. The magical thing about this, it's just thinking.
Have you been trained around design thinking?
We've been using. I'm a designer by profession, and we've been doing design thinking forever. This will not be new to master teachers. Master teachers who are good at their craft will understand this and say, "Oh my God, we actually have something that's got pedagogy and curriculum and has research-based fact-finding that this actually works." I mean, this is what is unfolding. Is neuroscience is telling us that this is how we go about it, and that's why I think it's so important. And our results with young people over time, which is over 5 years, is they're attuned to it.
Okay.
They embrace it, they engage it, and and as I was saying about the experience over at Weber, these kids knocked it out of the park, okay? I mean, I would bring up a word or comment, and they would connect the next word or comment to it, okay? Imagination, creativity, and and why is that important? Because it's how we work and how we think, and these creativity was alive and well at Weber.
Okay.
I'm really concerned, Art and Arbenita's current problem, that these kids are being left on the sidelines now. To have taken them to that moment and then not really having, I think, the confidence of the folks who are currently in charge is every day that goes by, and these kids would, you know, they have a routine that they go through when they go from class to class to class, and we would come in the front door and they would break, okay? Because they recognize, hey, that we're going to be doing something that's going to stimulate our imaginations. It's very important, I think, today. I see more and more that the focus on testing has taken the traditional opportunity for discovery out of learning. I mean, we're just backed up. We just have so much that we have to push across them. And then additionally, we have after school, and then we have events, and then we have soccer, and we have arts. When do you just get the opportunity to discover some things about yourself that require reflection? There's hardly any time for reflection. I'm a technology wonk. I don't have a cell phone. And I've been a technology wonk for 30 years, okay? Because just that. Most of my good thoughts come while I'm driving in my car, because there's hardly anywhere else to get any thinking time. And I'm unwilling to give that up, because I'm as addictive as the next person.
I get it.
You get that? Every day, though, I know I'm out of the loop,
Right.
okay?
Right.
And almost all business now is a text. Boy, I'm not playing in the game. But I think it's crucial to have that frame of reference, okay? Clearly, the 21st century classroom is going to be about tools as much as it is about instruction. And even as we talk about furniture and the mobility factor and being able to circle up in groups and so forth and so on, it changes the whole traditional instructional model.
That was
So-
another thing we did with Weber, was the steel case grant around furniture
Around
and
furniture
open
and mobility and
classroom, active learning classroom.
unfortunately,
be
they were a K through 6, so they
again.
didn't qualify. But we filed anyways because we wanted to know up at Steelcase. I have a relationship with Steelcase and have had for 25 years. That the future holds that we're going to place them in that arena. You know, when we talk about PMF, if you remember the originators for the Pontiac Moving Forward, out of Columbus, Ohio, well, 30% of their business is reinvention and rehab of 21st century classrooms. So we've had those conversations with that orchestration group. I think the second largest economic development catalyst in Pontiac is the 8 schools that are hung out there, previous 8 schools that were. If we miss that, and isn't it interesting, Ottawa Towers LLC owns that as well. And my feeling is those eight schools need to be community centers that are driven in a fashion around learning, but not necessarily schools, but more wide and broad, depending on the community that they're in, and each one's different. I don't care if you go 5 blocks, we've got different needs. And I've been advocating that with the ownership there as well. And so we've been to all the schools. We've seen the situation. It is $2 to $5 million to rehab them, but that's not unprecedented. In Detroit, they did 7 for $30 million. So here we got 8, so it's $40 million. But it's not unprecedented. People go 2 to 5. Why would anybody? They would if they want to save the city.
Is that what he's leaning towards, possibly doing with them?
No, it's a real hard proposition for them. They bought those schools with the intention of using some of the parking in the event that they didn't prevail in the Ottawa Towers Phoenix Center debate, right?
Right.
And I said to him, you've already moved past that, at the point that they bought them, but I also understood they're businessmen and they're trying to protect their investment, right?
Right.
And I said, so let me go play in the schools and find out what's really there and how we might better align that with something relative to what's happening in Pontiac moving forward, or Pontiac. And they were interested. They are interested. They would like to do the right thing, but they're also businessmen. So
Absolutely.
3 of them are pending in conversation. I mean, they keep me apprised. Okay, if someone calls and says, I want to buy this or such and so forth, they keep me aware. They haven't sold, they haven't made any decisions, and they're not in a hurry to do that. And when I say they're not in a hurry, if somebody came and said, we'll take the 8 schools and they make a profit, they'd do it, okay?
Right.
But they're not in a hurry because onesie, twosies, that's not the way to go about that,
Yeah.
okay? And
You want to say something, Dr. Weatherspoon?
Well, I came in late, I apologize, I didn't know we was gonna have this meeting, I didn't know I was gonna be here today, so. I'm picking up bits and pieces of what you're trying to convey. So let me just kind of recap what I'm hearing to make certain I understand.
sure.
So, service?
I don't know if we're selling any service as much as we're selling a way in which to impact the education. My history has been that I've been able to go out and raise funding for those kinds of things in the past, and I believe we can do that again. Are there some startup costs? Probably. Are there some conditions to discuss, such as should this exist in an environment that is conducive to utilizing technology so that you get the combination? We do this in an analog fashion because that wires it in the brain and does certain things, but then we move to a digital equation, which makes it even more seamless and transparent, but I'm still working because I was wired that way. It's important for a young person to be able to walk away and be able to view this in their mind, okay? And the way in which you do that is you interact with it physically, and it never goes away. So then when I'm doing the digital, that's still the way in which the brain wires it up, okay? If I do it digitally right off, that isn't the way that it wires it up, as we know. And, you know, 3 pages, we all go and we read stuff on the internet, but we're not retaining it. I know it's out there somewhere, and that's what I retain. I don't know what page it's on. In fact, there is no pages, right? Even though it says page 39, it's just a page. There's no context there for the brain to remember where those things sit. So a good deal of that, in answer to your question, goes to how we integrate that into the school district. Maybe that's a pilot program. Without speaking to teachers, I can't know how much enthusiasm there may or may not be. They've already got a plate full. I mean, I recognize a teacher's inbox is like this, and it never goes down. And it's just over and over and over. So I can't answer your question. Are we selling a service? If I said to you that I was going to do that, and I was going to begin that with, let's say, some kind of contract or service agreement within the context of the school district, I think that's difficult. I know the dollar figures. I know what's going on in education. Education's being starved by corporate America. They have a purpose. They'd like to own public education. We're opposed. And if corporate America prevails on that, we have lost public education as we understood it. It's as simple as that, and I recognize that they're standing on dollars every day. Every day that, is it 82 cents of every dollar goes to, right?
Yep.
I mean, this is serious, and I've been a long time participant in the Pontiac School District, so I understand all of those things.
There's synergy.
It's no different. It's no different for Bloomfield Hills. It's no different. I mean, we're 44th in the United States, and somebody says, well, I got a 10-year plan. This is the realities, and I got a 10-year plan. I mean, we have young people who desperately need to catch on.
So what I think I should do is kind of take a pulse with the teaching staff and see where their interest, if we could maybe pilot with one teacher, see where the interest may lie, if they would like to learn more about design thinking in their classroom. And then we can broach that conversation collectively with that individual and see where it goes.
Awesome.
Okay.
I would invite them to come and we do a Saturday morning breakfast club. It's an informal. We use design thinking.
Okay.
Okay, and that's a good way to observe in an informal fashion and draw some conclusions and ask some questions.
Okay.
We have some videos available where we've used design thinking in other formats and so forth and so on. If that helps, we'd be more than happy to meet directly with the teacher and talk about the way in which that happens and how it happens and get their feelings about how that interrupts. You know, I mean, it's one thing to bring something new, and it's another thing to interrupt the way in which you do it. You know, something new and it fits in the way I do things, I can handle that. Something that changes the way in which I do things, whoa, wait a minute.
Right.
That's not to be discounted. The teachers at Weber loved it, okay?
Okay.
They embraced it and so forth and so on, but I'm sure it's different everywhere. I mean, I think public school has maybe deeper responsibility than charter schools. By that I mean there's just more of a load on public schools for whatever reason.
Right.
I'm not a big charter advocate, public advocate. I'm a all school advocate. Okay.
Children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We ended up at Weber because I like Arvanita and Art in what they were attempting to accomplish. I still
Okay.
do.
Right.
I think there's some bad actors that they came across.
Okay.
And I don't want to go further than
Right.
that, but
Right.
seriously, I'm circumspect to that whole thing, and I think they may have, if Art and Arvanita are guilty of something, it may have been that they were somewhat naive. I mean, you start a school,
Yeah.
your heart's in it, your passion's in it, and maybe you know how to do that, and maybe you don't. You know, I mean, you yourself know there's education and there's the finance,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's a lot to ask when you're founding something new. And
Yeah.
I'm a serial entrepreneur. I know about starting up businesses.
Well,
it's
hopefully
hard.
everything will pan out for
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Okay, so
So-
I think I have my instructions as far as what our next step should be, and I can try to see, you know, if there's any interest
Okay.
with a teacher to pilot this program, and then we can come to the table and do a think tank and see where we can possibly explore this option in one classroom and
Is
see where it
Richard
goes.
Bell still
He does still work
for the district?
with the district, more so at the high school. He puts on 2 events.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he
Yeah, we're
was.
big supporters.
Of
Okay.
his.
Okay.
We took him
Okay.
on a tour to Tech Shop.
Mhm.
That's one of the platform pieces for the Pontiac Moving Forward Economic Development Plan that we've been advocating for, that a tech shop could be located at Ottawa Towers.
Okay. Okay.
And that exposure to advanced manufacturing, but also an entrepreneurial design thinking, it's a really
Okay.
good
Okay.
marriage, hands-on and
Right.
prototyping, doing those kind of things.
Okay. Okay.
And Richard Bell was he's good to work with.
Yeah, good to work with,
Okay.
a good advocate.
Okay.
And there are others who have had exposure as well from city council and so forth and so on, who are also
Okay.
Kermit,
Kermit Williams,
he always
okay.
does design. We do something else for STEAM career days called like learning pop-ups, collaborative. We had like a hip hop station, a martial arts station, a design thinking political station. Kermit always does that, and then with MSU Tech Wizards, so robotics and
Right.
and just sort of getting young people to see what they gravitate towards.
Right.
And then you can observe and figure
See
out
their
how
interests,
to
okay.
how to engage from there.
Okay.
Kermit's a big advocate for that. He loves doing that.
Okay. All right, so it will probably be the new year. I know we have another committee of
Glad
50
you got us
meeting.
in before the end of the year, so we
Yes.
can think forward, okay?
Absolutely.
Great.
And so we'll try to reconnect in the new year
Okay.
and see where we can
Terrific.
go. Okay.
Terrific. And then I would love to speak more in depth about the Pontiac moving forward in the OU Pontiac.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be on your committee for education at the OU Pontiac.
Okay.
So we didn't get a chance to get to, they made you
You know-
choose one,
Yeah.
and we didn't get a chance to get to all the ones that we would love to participate in.
Okay.
We went into the funding table so we can
Okay.
write some grants
Right.
and narratives around
Right.
some things.
Okay. Well, I work closely with the mayor with that initiative as well as Oakland University, so I will definitely
Great.
let them know your interest. And do you get
We're-
the emails?
We're on the Economic Development Committee for that.
Okay. Well, that's the springboard for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't been a springboard yet, but we're
Right.
hopeful.
Right.
We're
And
writing
so
a
we're having-
design brief.
Okay.
We're having real
Currently for
good
that.
conversations with the county,
Okay.
with Brett Razigan and so forth and so on, about these very things, innovation districts and
Mm-hmm.
so forth and so on.
Education, #1 pillar for the
And
whole
to that
thing.
end,
Right.
I would say that the Book of the Month Club,
Oh, you've used this book often, huh?
We're research and development
Definitely
firm
like
at
the
our
Great American
at the
City.
heart.
so while we're working with these young people, we'll be talking about,
What's a
what
city?
is it- how does a city
how
act?
does it work?
Right.
this was the first pushback against urban renewal in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And the nuggets of wisdom in there about how a city works, which is mostly serendipitous,
Mm-hmm.
and how you're going to design your city to work in the 21st century, it's got a rebirth,
Right.
okay? And this is the kind of thing we'd be sharing with kids.
Okay.
Hey guys, we have a city, but we have work that we wish to accomplish that is about you and your future and why you're here.
Right.
And so there's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've got engagement.
Mm-hmm. A vested purpose.
Exactly.
Okay. It was a pleasure seeing
Good.
you
Thank
all
you so
again.
much.